Good evening, guys. Welcome to another episode of Triggered. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different. Tonight, we're going to have a tutorial. Everything you need to know about the ATF pistol brace ban, some of the insanity that's going on around that, whether you choose to comply with the laws or not, and the pros and cons of that. We're going to be talking with Congressman Andrew Clyde of Georgia, a gun expert, a Class 3 owner himself, someone in the business. We're going to talk to my buddy George Armstrong, an ATF pistol brace ban expert, someone who does this, another manufacturer of Class 3 weapons, full auto stuff, suppressors, someone who lives this world, has to comply, has to understand. We're literally going to go through the Form 1 that you got a week to fill out before you can literally be in violation of federal law. Now, again, I'm not advocating for going along with this. I don't like the idea of that. I also understand that I am not Hunter Biden, okay? I will not get a pass on these things. So we'll also have my friend from Field Ethos, the outdoor publication that I publish and help create because I thought they were going too woke in even the hunting and outdoor space. Jason Vincent, former law enforcement, my partner in that deal. He'll probably take on the more cynical side of the issue, but the idea is to learn. So this is going to be informative. We're going to show and tell you everything you need to know ahead of the May 31st deadline, guys. So you have about a week, okay? If you get your stuff postmarked before that deadline, you can do it. But even me, someone who's filled out the Form 4 more times than I can remember, we're going to take you through the Form 1 because there's little details. There's things that the ATF will ding you, again, if you choose to do that. And for some, I get it. Maybe you don't want to do it. I understand that. I understand all the logic of it. I also understand that I've been on social media about 1 billion times shooting these things. They know I have it, and I would think, given everything else we've seen, given every witch hunt, given all the nonsense they've thrown at me and my family, I have a feeling on June 1 they'd be knocking on my door. So for me, that's the choice I'll probably make. And I also have plenty of other stuff that they don't know about yet, and whatever list I'd be on because of this, I promise you, I've been on that list. And I've been on all the lists, and I am on all the lists, and I imagine they keep growing. So make sure you like, subscribe, and share this episode because I think you're going to learn a lot. For your friends who are on the fence, maybe they can figure out which way they want to go on this one. If they're not sure how they're filling it out, this is your chance, as much as I don't like the idea of it, your chance to get in with the SBR stuff without having to pay the $200 per weapon fee, etc. So we're going to take you all of this. Now, to me, this unconstitutional rule will turn millions of law-abiding gun owners into felons for merely possessing guns with stabilizing braces, okay? If you don't comply with the ATF. Now, bear in mind, the ATF made the rules for these weapons. They designed them, and now they're changing the rules that they made, putting millions of people into jeopardy. Gun owners who have stabilizing brace attachments on their firearms must register the device by May 31st, or face up to 10 years in prison and thousands of dollars in fines, okay? Now, I get it. Many of you can go under the radar. Many of you aren't out there, vocally 2A. Many of you aren't on hundreds of very public pages shooting these weapons like I am. So I get why you may not want to do it. I also get that, I promise you, I would have to serve out every last second of that 10 years and every last dollar of the tens of thousands of dollars in fines on moment number 1. If you've been watching for the last 6 years, you understand that. So please don't hate on me for it, and I know I'll get plenty because there's the purists who I actually agree with who say we shouldn't be doing these things, we shouldn't do it, but I understand also why certain people would want to comply with the law, where the downside is not worth that risk, where people already know that you're shooting, where the reasons go on and on. So remember, folks, if you will, Hunter Biden broke gun laws, and nothing happened to him. Hopefully, Congress will do something about that. Again, that's why we're going to talk to Rep. Andrew Clyde about exactly what they're doing. But Hunter lied on a gun background check by claiming he isn't a drug addict. That carries a punishment of up to 10 years in prison as well. But nothing will happen to him because he is above the law. He doesn't own a stabilizing brace, and if he did, that would probably be fine. But I think any conservative, any vocal Second Amendment supporter, anyone out there who's, let's call it, on the conservative side of things, may not get the same treatment because there isn't equal justice under our laws. What will this rule accomplish other than punish Americans that don't like the Biden administration? Not much. Democrats aren't concerned about crime. They're concerned about finding ways to gut the Second Amendment. They want you to be weak. They want you to not be able to defend yourself. Just look at what they're trying to do around the country. Okay? Whether it's Daniel Perry and the prosecution of a Good Samaritan, because they want to make sure that no one else jumps in when you, a loved one, is perhaps a victim. But for example, Philadelphia. The Soros-funded district attorney there, Larry Krasner, refused to enforce gun possession laws against gang members. Think about this, okay? It's a shock to everyone, obviously, that the places with the strictest gun control laws also have the most amount of shootings, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's Chicago, whether it's LA, or all these other examples. Look at this headline for Reason magazine, quoting, Philadelphia's district attorney sees little value and much injustice in possession arrests. Really? Seems they'd be all about that if it was on the other side of the political spectrum. Democrats would rather politicize the issue and coddle criminals continually, again and again and again, than take the actual steps to make our city safer and give people the ability to defend themselves. The point of this pistol stabilizing brace ban is to punish the people with them. They are largely America-loving patriots, not criminals. Unfortunately for them, though, crime is the priority under Joe Biden. Just not the crime that we'd normally care about. If you were breaking the law, that's the crime they care about. Even if you're a law-abiding citizen, even if you go about it right, even if you're just looking to defend yourselves and your freedom and your family, that's a problem. Actual criminals, rape, murder, arson, looting, like we saw during the Summer of Love 2020 riots, that's different. And it's also a major overreach of rulemaking authority. But Biden's ATF doesn't care. They want to do anything and everything they can to try and undermine the important Second Amendment rights we all love. And we're here to do a deep dive into everything you need to know. It's just one of the many reasons why dismantling the federal bureaucracy is so important. So much of the destructive Democrat agenda takes place inside the federal bureaucracy. And it's why 2024 is so important, because the only real way to get meaningful change is to gut the federal bureaucracy and get rid of all of these left-wing bureaucrats. And we have Congressman Andrew Clyde from Georgia here in just moments to lay out how he's working to stop it. But first, I want to take a second and thank our great sponsors like Goldco. I want you to be prepared, folks. We see the economic storm brewing. We see all the warning signs. We see the banks collapsing. We see interest rates going up. We see inflation. We see just idiocy. And gold and silver can protect your retirement savings from inflation, dollar devaluation, and owning tangible physical inflation hedging gold and silver can help diversify your portfolio. So from precious metals to direct purchases of tangible gold and silver, Goldco's helped thousands of Americans. So support companies who support you instead of the woke companies that hate your guts. Go to donjuniorgold.com to learn more. That's donjrgold.com and learn. Again, you see the writing on the wall. I just want you to be prepared, so go check them out. I also want you to be prepared. This is sort of a fitting advertiser given what's going on in the world today for My Patriot Supply. I want to make sure you know about them and where you can stock up on everything that you may need for an emergency to make sure you and your family are protected. My Patriot Supply is making a special offer to help everyone be prepared for what could be coming. Act now. You'll get a 3-month emergency food kit plus a free water filtration system so you can clean and have clean water to drink and cook with. Your My Patriot Supply 3-month food kit gives you a wide variety of delicious meals, provides over 2,000 calories a day, which is highly important in keeping up your strength and energy. So order today, get free gravity-powered water filtration system, a $279 value as a bonus. Go to preparewithdonjr.com. That's P-R-E-P-A-R-E with Don Jr., spell out the junior, Junior.com to learn more and check it out. But just, hey guys, it's an insurance policy. Better to be prepared, but if you've been watching, you understand just how important that insurance policy is. And with that, guys, we're going to go to my friend, Congressman Andrew Clyde out of Georgia, to talk a little bit about what's going on right here. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, Don, thank you so very much for inviting me on. And I love the name of your program, Triggered, because that's exactly what we're doing with the Democrats. With my little pin here that I wear in my tie all the time, the little AR-15, we trigger them all the time with it. And it's great to be with you today. Thank you.
Good to have you. Yeah, that one really bothers them. I know we had Anna Paulina Luna on here a couple of weeks ago, and she had the same thing, and they're going after her. And this is a woman Air Force veteran supporting the Second Amendment. And I think that's what it's all about. I mean, it's not about that. It's about attacking our rights. So, talk about this, because so many Republicans and Second Amendment advocates and believers, what can we do about this? What's going on in Congress? Who are the people that are helping lead that charge to stop this overreach? To me, this is a huge threat to the Second Amendment. I know, you have, a detailed knowledge of this. You have a full auto collection. You dealer as well. I'll get into the details of that with my next guest, my buddy George from Battle Tested Equipment. Talk a little bit about what's going on, because I feel like so often the Republicans say, well, we have a couple of guys fighting, but no one's really taking it seriously. They're going to walk all over and trample our rights. What's going on, and how do we push back on this?
Well, thank you. Well, I'll tell you, it's a very, very serious thing. You've got the Second Amendment of the Constitution has a supremacy clause, shall not be infringed. And so we in Congress are responsible. Our government is responsible for upholding the individual rights in the Bill of Rights in our Constitution for everyday citizens. And the Second Amendment just happens to be one of my favorite ones. Actually, after the First Amendment, it is the most important amendment, because the Second Amendment is the teeth behind the First. If we didn't have the Second, we wouldn't have the First for very long. So I think it's so very important that we protect and defend the Second Amendment. And that was one of the things I promised my district when I came to Congress, that would be a priority for me. So we're doing a number of things, 3 things actually that I can talk to you about. First, we can do it through legislation. The SHORT Act has been introduced already, and that means the SHORT stands for Stop Harassing Owners of Rifles Today. And what that piece of legislation would do is it would eliminate short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and AOWs from the National Firearms Act of 1934, because those are the more restricted weapons under the NFA. And if we can eliminate those 3 categories of weapons, and we can make this issue of pistol braces being reclassified, redefined as a short barrel rifle, we can make it completely go away. And we've got sponsors, many sponsors here in the House. We've got sponsors in the Senate for that bill as well. It has not moved yet, though, unlike the next piece of legislation I want to talk about, and that is a Congressional Review Act, HJ Res 44. When the ATF wrote their pistol brace rule, they overreached their authority in the government. I mean, you've got the 3 branches of government, and the ATF clearly did not stay within their branch, the executive branch. They wanted to become, I guess, legislators. They want to be members of Congress or something and write laws themselves. And they can't do that. That is a clear violation of the separation of powers in the Constitution. And so HJ Res 44 is the piece of legislation that can strike down this ATF rule and prevent the ATF from ever drafting another rule or a similar rule like it in the future. So that's a really important thing. We've got 190 co-sponsors on that bill right now. It takes 218 to pass in the House. I'm speaking with leadership. I've spoken with leadership already this week about bringing it to the floor before the 31st or by the 31st of May, so we can send a strong signal, Don, to the ATF and to the judicial system that Congress does not approve of this rule. And you got to remember, this is a rule that ATF has created. It's not actual law. All right, it's just a rule.
That's what people don't understand. I mean, this is literally not only is it a rule that ATF created, but it's something that they designed, right? And so, they came up with something, and like all things, like the people who put together the New York Safe Act, all of a sudden the next day, police officers were literally felons for committing the crime of going to work with their duty pistol, because the people writing the laws didn't even understand them themselves. They didn't know enough they didn't know the difference between a trigger and a muzzle, on a firearm, and yet they want to be the first to act, so we're going to check this box. But, I think people do want to see some action. So, if you have, you don't have 218, so that means there's at least, I guess you said, 198? So there's 20 Republicans that have not yet signed on to that legislation. Are there any Democrats that have signed on? Are there any Democrats that, would possibly sign on to this to actually do this? Or is this just totally, partisan at this point? Because I think that's something that people do need to understand, which is that, the reality is that while we have the House, we barely have the House. While we have the House, there's plenty of weak Republicans there. And so, I don't know that we can actually pass actual legislation. How do we have some teeth behind this so that people see that something's actually getting done?
Well, I think we can pass HJ Res 44. I'm actually reasonably confident about it, because this is truly not an actual gun bill itself. What HJ Res 44 would do would simply strike down the ATF rule. I mean, here we've got a piece of plastic. This is a brace, and this was designed for disabled veterans. That was the whole point of this thing. So HJ Res 44 is truly, it's a government overreach piece of legislation, and it's a piece of legislation that protects and cares for our disabled veterans. We have a duty in the government to take care of those who have sacrificed for our nation, especially those who have given, that have gotten the Purple Heart, that have lost a limb or something like that. I mean, it's egregious that we don't put those people, at the very top of our priorities. And I don't think, and the ATF is definitely not doing that. And so this particular bill is much more a disabled veterans bill and a government overreach bill than it is a gun bill. So I think we have a great opportunity and a great potential to pass this bill either late this week or early next week, before the 31st, before the ATF rule actually goes into effect. Right now, it still has to pass the Senate, and we have great co-sponsors over there, Senator Marshall and Senator Kennedy, and they have a significant amount of support. Don't know exactly where it would go in the Senate, and I really don't know that President Biden would actually sign it. So it's a potential to do, but there's really a third area that Congress can work on, and this is I think the most powerful and the most important, and that's through the appropriations process. Mm-hmm. And I'm very thankful that I am on the appropriations subcommittee that actually deals and has a vote on the budget of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Imagine that. Imagine a federal firearms licensee who has a say in what the DOJ and the FBI and the ATF's budget actually will be for 2024. Mm-hmm. And so we are going to do what is called, and I've already submitted it to our subcommittee, a limitation amendment, which will basically say that no money may be spent on either on implementing or enforcing this ATF rule. Now, it won't go into effect until FY24 begins, which would be October 1st. All right. So any prosecution of people, I think we can eliminate after October the 1st. But we will send a strong message to the court system, and there's a number of court cases out there already, that Congress does not approve of this ATF rule.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's the problem. Again, not controlling the Senate, not having enough of a majority to overrule a veto by Joe Biden. Like, that's the reality, unfortunately. This thing's going into effect. Are you aware of any of the gun groups out there doing anything to, challenge this legally? Or take it to the Supreme Court? You sort of you hear a lot of noise, but who are the people actually doing anything from that perspective outside of Congress?
Oh, there are a number of them out there that are doing that. I know Gun Owners of America are doing it. I know that you've got National Association of Gun Rights is in that space as well. I think there is also a few state organizations that are in that space. I believe, from what I remember, there's about 8 lawsuits right now that are moving forward on it. So it's this thing I don't think will stand. Not one little bit. Although, like you said earlier, this rule is still treated as if it was a law. And so people do have to take it very, very seriously. And I'm really glad that what you're going to be doing in the next part of the program is going through the actual Form 1 paperwork that's going to be required for folks if they want to register their pistol braced firearm as a short-barreled rifle.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, for me, I know that there's going to be people giving me all sorts of hell for even, talking about the possibility of doing it. I also know, based on, 7 years of experience and millions and millions and millions of dollars in legal fees, that, again, I won't be treated like Hunter Biden. It'll be different. If I put a comma, in the wrong spot, if there's a little smudge somewhere on the form, even if everything else looks right, I'm probably going to jail for the 10 years, times umpteen number of things. So, I mean, I guess, talk about that, because while we're fighting it, we may still have to deal with this for the time being. They're not going to do it. Weak people in courts are going to allow something to happen. The injunction efforts hopefully prevail, because I want to make clear, I'm not a fan of any of these things, but I also understand the consequences to people on our side. I understand that we don't have equal justice under the law. Talk about just how severe these consequences are to everyday gun owners. I know from your perspective as a Class 3 owner, as a dealer yourself, I mean, that if you get one of these things wrong, these are not minor consequences. This isn't a slap on the wrist. We're not getting the Hunter Biden treatment where he can fill out, lying on a form and then throw a handgun in a garbage can outside of a high school. It's a little different for us.
Oh, it's very, very different for us. I mean, we're conservative. My name's on that list too, Don. So
I'm on every list at this point. There's not even, I'm on every list.
Mm-hmm. But it's serious. It's serious consequences. You've got 10 years and $250,000 fine. That's what the fine is. So people do have to take this rule very seriously. Whether you want to have a short-barreled rifle or not, whether you want to remove the pistol brace. In fact, when Director Dettelbach was in front of the Judiciary Committee here in Congress, and Congressman Massey was questioning him about, what were the consequences and what could people do? Dettelbach said that, you just take the brace. If you don't want to register it, you don't want to destroy it, you don't want to turn it in, just take the brace off of it. And then Congressman Massey asked, well, what about, constructive prosecution? If you have the brace and you have the pistol, and the two of them not together, but, in the same household, can you be prosecuted for that? And Dettelbach said no, but I think ATF came out just a day or two ago and said, hey, you actually have to destroy the brace, all right, for it not to be a constructive prosecution. And of course, there would be those that ATF would completely overlook, because there is a 2-tiered system of justice. But you and I, absolutely not. They wouldn't do that whatsoever.
Yeah, and for those of you watching, I'm going to go through right after the congressman has to go to some votes in a few minutes. We're going to go through literally every machination of this, how to do it, how to turn it back into a pistol if you want it to be that, how to go, full SPR if that's the way you want to do it. You have this window, you can do it for free, but it's got to be done by May 31st. If you don't do that, it's over as far as they're concerned. That doesn't mean it doesn't get hopefully overturned later on in time, whatever that may be. But we don't know, and we understand that we're not dealing with a legal system that's actually in our favor or even has an understanding of what the word shall not be infringed actually means. So, Congressman, before you have to go to your votes, what else can you tell us about Joe Biden's ATF? How big a threat are they to our gun rights?
Well, I can tell you that their budget, they want to increase their budget by literally $200 million from 1.5 billion to 1.7 well, almost $300 million. And you're not going to do that because you don't want to increase prosecution. Or no, the ATF under President Biden, in my opinion, is the most dangerous ATF we have ever seen. And that has to be stopped. The way we stop it is we take away their money. Money in Washington, D.C. is power. And the way we reduce their power is we reduce their budget. And as you have seen with the FBI here lately, that has simply overreached their authority, whether it's, the Durham report that exonerated your dad, or whether it was, the overreach in the prosecutions of Mark Houck, et cetera. It's on the Justice Department, the ATF, the FBI are simply on steroids here, creating this two-tiered system of justice. And the way we deal with them is we cut their budgets. And we're going to do that in the CJS appropriation, the subcommittee that I'm on, because that's really what has to happen here, Don. We have to hold them accountable. And the way we do it is we cut their funding. The only thing they understand is money.
Okay, so, you're on appropriations. I know you're 100% on board with that. Are there Republicans on there that are going to go weak because they get a little pressure from the Democrats to allow this to go through? Are there Democrats that we can actually win over because they're in perhaps a red state or a state that actually believes in the Second Amendment, generally speaking, or across the board? How do we make sure we apply as much pressure as we possibly can to make sure that people understand what we're fighting for here?
Well, we might get a Democrat or two. It won't be more than that. But I'm pretty confident that we'll get the vast majority of the Republicans, that we will get enough Republicans, especially on this one. With what we've seen from the FBI and the Department of Justice, and ATF is part of the Department of Justice. From what we have seen, their tremendous overreach is so egregious that the only solution is going to be cutting their budget. And that has to happen. I've spoken to many, many folks on the Approps Committee, and they're of the same mindset that I am. They might not be quite as passionate about it as I am, but I think they're going to be in the boat with me, and we're going to get this done. We're going to get this done for the American people.
Well, Congressman, thank you. And just let us know, or let me know, who isn't playing along with some of this stuff, because I want to make sure that everyone is aware of that, when they're out there and they're fundraising, and because this is a huge one. And again, because the law was designed by the same people who are now trying to make you a felon for following the rules that they created. And if we don't see the hypocrisy in that, if we don't see the danger in that, honestly, if people are still dumb enough to believe that agencies like the ATF or the FBI, after everything we've literally found out, even in the last week, if you're still dumb enough to believe that they are going to do things in a nice partisan fact, like, you haven't been watching. You probably deserve to lose your rights because you're an idiot. That's a scary, scary thing. So I understand that you have some votes. Thank you for joining us here today. Please keep us in the loop because this is a big one.
Thank you very much, Don. Appreciate being on, and I will keep you in the loop.
Thanks, man. Talk to you in a little bit. Be well.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, I'm going to reposition a little bit. I have my friend, George Armstrong, great manufacturer. He actually built all the guns on the table right now. This is actually my my truck gun for my backpack gun for everything. That's a folding, AR pistol carbine. We'll talk about the differences and the nuances of the folding stocks and what we can do with that. Then you have the more traditional, just,
It's fixed,
pistol brace, fixed stock,
non-folder.
Non-folder.
The reason why we're bringing both of them out, you actually, when you're filling out the forms, these are two different weapons in the law's eyes. We actually have to measure them differently. We're going to go over all that with you guys.
Yeah. So we have the Form 1. Okay, this is the form you need to fill in from the ATF. We actually went through this, and honestly, the precipice for this show and why we're doing them, and this is a little different than what I'm normally doing, and it's almost, at this point, this one's going to be part of a tutorial For those of us, Jason Vincent, my partner in Field Ethos, if those of you follow me on social, probably see me posting about it. It's my sort of outdoor magazine, and he's former law enforcement, to talk about the pros and cons. And again, we totally understand why people wouldn't do it. Save your hate. For me even talking about it, the reality is I know I'd be going to jail for 10 years, and it's a little different. So you can choose for yourself, but for me, I mean, I filled out the Form 4 literally
I can only
probably
imagine.
hundreds of times, okay? The Form 1, which is what this would be, allows you to, I guess...
What a Form 1 is basically, 5320.1 is a technical term. It's called a Form 1. That's the application to manufacture a firearm. What manufacture means is you buy it as a pistol, which in this case, as a manufacturer, we were allowed to build guns with barrels shorter than 16 inches and attach these arm braces to them.
Yep.
And that essentially kept this thing as a pistol. Now, the Form 1 allows you to take that pistol and register it as a short barrel rifle. We're going to use the term SBR, which is short barrel rifle. And it allows you to do that. And that's basically when we talk about being in compliance, that's what you're going to do with a Form 1. And we'll walk you through those steps today and kind of show you, if you want to keep it as a pistol, what you have to do to remain compliant. If you want to go the SBR route, we'll show you the benefits of that, what you have to do to that. We can show you how to fill out the Form 1. With guys like you and I mean, as much as we'd love to take the stand and say, you know what, this is where we're going to draw the line in the sand, I'm in the business, machine gun collector, manufacturer. You're a high-profile guy, big gun guy, hunter, shooter. We obviously have to err on the side of caution and follow the law. So
yeah, I mean, I'm on an SOT. I have suppressors. I'm already on whatever ATF radar. Plus, I'm probably on thousands of social media posts shooting stuff like this. So yeah, it's not a stretch to say, if they're using the FBI's HRT, the hostage rescue team, to do a search warrant on Mar-a-Lago, I'm probably getting a visit. And so, for me, that's a personal choice. It doesn't mean I'm happy about it. It does not mean that I'm thrilled. Absolutely. It does not mean I agree with it. It just means, hey, I'm not going to jail for this, knowing that I'm the first person that they'd love to make an example of if they can. You've had conversations with people at the ATF
Absolutely.
that hate me for even talking about these things, for even shooting with you and taking my kids out shooting full auto with you out in Arizona.
It definitely puts a target on you.
Where it's like, Don Jr.'s the real threat, because literally just shooting, like I'm the threat.
A fully automatic 50 cal from an armored Humvee when it was a semi-automatic Barrett with a silencer.
Yeah, they don't get it, but we're on the radar for certain. So let's maybe start with the guns, right? Okay. You have you have the traditional, this is just the pistol braced AR-15.
Absolutely.
So this is a 9mm carbine. It's a little bit different than the standard 223, 5.56, depending on which way you want to look at it. But this is a go-to. For me, this is sort of my under the bed, and this is my truck gun, because it's even a little bit smaller and can fit in the backpack.
Absolutely, same as me.
So talk about the differences in even then, because, again, as many times as I filled out the Form 4, going through the Form 1, I'm like, oh, that's weird. There's so many little things I could have made a mistake. There's so many things that aren't quite that clear. The duplicate copies, everything.
If you read the Form 1, cover to cover, it's 13 pages, and it might as well be written in Greek, because I literally remember the first one I ever filled out. We're talking 20-something years ago, and they've changed since then. As a manufacturer, we have to remain fluid. Even since the introduction of the pistol brace ruling, we've had to remain fluid, because in the beginning they told us we had X amount of days to liquidate all of our inventory that had pistol braces on it. The very next day we got an email that says you can no longer sell that configuration. So we were literally stuck with all these inventory that we had to get compliant. We couldn't move it, yada, yada, yada. So we've had to remain fluid. But when you read these forms, like I said, they might as well be written in Greek. So what we want to do today is walk you through and kind of show you, interpret some of that stuff. And it comes down to little things. Like, for instance, it asks you on here the length of the barrel. Yeah. Most people would look at this and throw a tape measure on this guy here and say, oh, it's about 6 inches. Yeah. The problem with that is it has to be a little more specific than that. So we'll walk you through that part of it right now. Obviously, the weapon's been cleared. In order to measure the barrel length, we have to actually essentially put the gun into battery, which we never do because we're safe gun people.
And by the way, hey guys, all of these have been open, clean. This one, because it's a folder, you actually can't open the chamber you know, when it's in the folded position, so it's been cleared and all that stuff, because I know there's going to be someone in there, oh my God, muzzled is a dribble.
This guy with tattoos is flagging Don
Like,
Jr.
you can save your bitching for later. We don't need to hear it. We understand. We all know the rules.
So the first step we're going to do is show you how to actually measure the overall barrel length.
Yep.
Now, we're going to put the gun into battery.
Because that is one of the questions on the form.
It is. That is actually one of the major questions that you have to have. They want to know, because if it's over 16 inches, we're not even doing the form.
Correct.
So what I do...
Yeah, this is for under 16 inches, pistol braced.
The law states that it's measured from the breech face, which is the bolt face, to the end of the muzzle threads, if this can be removed. So if we spun this off, there would be threads that would stop right here.
Yeah.
So what I do is I take a wooden dowel, drop it in there, and then I take my pen, and I'll actually mark it
down
where it ends, which is going to be right here. And then I will pull that out and measure from this point to this point, and that is literally the value that's going to go in on the barrel length section of the Form 1.
Now, if the muzzle brake, for some of those who live maybe in the People's Republic of New York, where you can't, I guess prior to the Safe Bullshit Act, if the muzzle brake is pinned, that's different, because that then adds that extra length to the barrel. Because I had a couple of guns like that where I know you make a tanker, and I know I have one. I was like, hey George, it's less than 16 to the brake. But if you include the brake, it's probably 17 and a half inches. But because it's pinned, it's actually okay, and it doesn't apply to this.
Absolutely. So anytime.
So now the ATF knows about one more gun of mine.
when you permanently attach something to the end of the barrel by the proper pin and weld, I don't mean rock set it, JB weld it, whatever. It has to be a pin.
Yeah, it's drilled, it's pinned, and soldered over.
Welded. I leave my welds obvious. You'll notice it on the bottom of the tanker, so they know that it's pinned and welded. Once you do that, that becomes part of the overall length of the barrel. So we would be measuring from the breech face to that point. Now, on a gun that has a 14.5-inch barrel, you can pin and weld a flash hider on it, have it professionally done, and then you don't have to file a Form 1. What I've been doing a lot as well.
And by the way, for those of you who don't want to fill in anything, if you have something like that that's pushing those boundaries, you can do that, and then all of a sudden you're in compliance. Now, theoretically, you're breaking the law from May 31st to when you actually get that done. Exactly. I imagine no one's coming to look for you, so it's a way to get legal, even if you're perhaps semi-legal or illegal for the amount of time that it takes you to do that. But it saves you having to even think about this if that's something you're willing to do. And it's a pretty simple procedure. Any competent gunsmith can do it in about 5 minutes.
Absolutely. And another option as well, say you have an 8-inch barrel 9mm and you have an extra 9mm silencer laying around, you pin and weld that to the barrel, that becomes part of the barrel. You obviously already have your tax stamp on the suppressor, and then you don't have to worry about SBR, and it becomes a one-stamp gun. So you don't have to fill out this form on it. Okay. So that's something to think about as well. Now I'm going to put this gun, I'm going to lock the bolt back, because what I want to go over next is I want to actually go over the overall length, and that's going to be another question. That's the next question on the form, is the overall length of the weapon. And there's so many different, if you go down the Google rabbit hole, there are so many different answers you can get for this, but the proper way, as defined by the National Firearms Act of 1934, is you remove the buttstock, and you'll literally measure from the end of the barrel, which we now know is the
depending on
muzzle
pinned or not,
threads, to the end of the buffer tube.
Okay.
The exception to that is if you have a folder, like your Mark V folder over there, you'll actually measure that overall length.
So that's a little different.
You'll measure that from in the folded position from the rear of the receiver to the threads on that guy. So that's the difference between the two, and that's why we have these two different specimens out here, so we can show you how to properly measure either way. Now, it's one of those things where I don't know if the ATF would even know that that gun's a folder. I don't know if they would know that you got it wrong, but it's one of those things when they come knocking, or they see you at the range, or they see this, you want to have all of this perfect, because it's one of those things that you don't want to be caught with your pants down. So
okay, so the way to do nothing about this, right? If I wanted to do nothing about it
and be compliant
and just be compliant as an AR pistol, what is it that I need to do?
So hand me that buffer tube over there. I'll hold the weapon here. So the buffer tube obviously is the rear part of the weapon that holds the buffer mechanism. This is a pistol-only buffer tube, and the definition of that is it's a round tube, and you cannot attach any type of stock or device to it. Okay, so you would have to install that. Simply by doing that, this gun is now a pistol. However, as a pistol, you have to refrain from doing certain things. One of the things you cannot do as a pistol is use a vertical grip. You cannot put a vertical grip on it, as to where if you did a Form 1 and SBR'd it, you can do a vertical grip.
Right, so if you Form 1 it, you can put the vertical grip on. You're basically, theoretically, as much as we don't like it, but this is sort of a one-time And again, before May 31st, it's free. You can waive the tax stamp,
Exactly.
the $200
Yep.
thing. So if you have go the SBR route, you can have that vertical pistol grip.
grip.
You basically can do anything.
Now, just to make sure everybody's, once you receive the approved form back, you can go that route.
Yes.
And you can
All right.
also put a buttstock on it. So you can go buttstock, vertical grip. You essentially lift the restrictions or limitations on that weapon as far as barrel length
of modification. Yep.
The irony of the whole thing is, now if we look back at the NFA Act of 1934, that was drawn up for pistols, to ban pistols, okay? The SBRs and SBSs, SBS is a term for short barrel shotgun, the SBR, short barrel rifle, those were added to that for the sole purpose of preventing the circumvention of the pistol part of that ban. Now here's the irony. The pistol was removed from that ban before it was actually published. So the pistols weren't regulated under that act. They actually slipped the SBR and the SBS on it, so you couldn't circumvent the pistol act of it, and then they removed the pistol from the actual law. So if you read up on the 1934 NFA Act, it's going to blow your mind. It's actually pretty interesting. So
interesting.
Yeah,
well, so let's go through the form for those of us, because
Right.
again, this was something that was sort of interesting, because you can go through the form, but there's a couple things you need. What I noticed, because you're not just sending, and it's 2 copies of this to the ATF. Okay, so if you're whatever package you're putting, and we'll talk about how to even mail that so you can get it in. But you're going to fill out 2 forms of this. So you need 2 passport photos with that. But then you also need a 3rd copy, okay, that you're going to send to your local sheriff's office.
Yep, your Clio. They call it.
Your local Clio. So look up who your sheriff is. You put it, and you're not asking for permission in that process. That was the interesting thing that you said. You're just here it is. So you actually need 3 passport photos for each one of these things, and you need 1 set of fingerprint cards.
So exactly, 1 pair actually.
One pair of fingerprint cards. They only go to the ATF. So you can go, where do you get those?
So you can go to UPS store, you can go, there's actually fingerprint outlets all over. There's literally Google fingerprints. It's the same form you use for a federal background check, your CCW permit, all the UPS.
So tell them it's just for NFA purposes. But again, you need 2 of those sheets. You can do it. I did it in about half an hour.
Now, if you're one of those gun nuts that has, say like 15 or 20 SBRs you have to register, you only need the pair of fingerprint cards if you send it in the same packet. But each form still has to have the 2x2 photo.
Correct. Yeah, like I got, let's call it, dozen plus in my package. But yes, it was only 2 fingerprint ID cards, and those don't need to go to your local
No, they do
law
not. Those
enforcement.
actually go right to the ATF. Yeah.
But make a 4th copy for yourselves, guys. You don't need the extra, obviously, passport photos, but make an extra copy, because while it's in process of the form itself, right? Both sides. Print it on both sides, because if you have that form and that copy, that's basically your license that you're in process. Because I imagine the ATF's going to be flooded with this. I imagine we're not going to be seeing anything in return anytime soon, but do it.
I will comment on that. For the e-file option, that's taken quite a while, because that's the route everybody's going. Paper filing, I'm seeing back. Before this ruling, I was seeing 12 to 18 months. I've seen the last probably 10 packets I've sent in 4 to 6 weeks, including mailing, and that's the paper form, because everybody's e-filing. When I print these out, I actually print, like you said, 4 copies. The first 2 I fill out, the first 3 I fill out the same exact way. The 2 go to the ATF. The 4th one, definitely keep in your records. That's great. If it takes a while, you can call them, give them the serial number, say, hey, what's going on? But at least you have proof, hey, I filled it out. I'm trying to be compliant. That's definitely the route to go. A couple of the things I want to
talk about the form a little bit, and I know you have this up on your website as well, right?
So what I did is I actually put on the BTE-USA Instagram, so it's at BTE-USA. In the bio, there's a link to right to the ATF website to the exact form you have to fill out. It's a 5320.1 or Form 1, and you can fill it out. What I do is I download it to my computer as a PDF, and I'll go through and fill out all the information. Then I'll go through and change the make, model, serial number, and then print it. My 4 copies.
Guys, especially if you're doing a bunch of these, like George and I were. By doing that, saving the PDF, you can leave all of your information basically the same and change. I have a bunch of George's guns, so I literally had to change serial number and serial number, because it was basically a lot of this duplicative guns, et cetera. But by saving it there, you don't have to fill out your information each and every time. You sort of fill it out once, save it, and then you can go through and just change the things. You also have to sort of delete out in the PDF. They literally put a cross through your signature area.
Both front and back. You're going to sign this thing actually in 2 places. You're going to sign as the applicant, and then name and title of authorized official is going to be you, because you're the applicant. You're going to date it for the day you submit it. And on the back, signature of maker, because you're making this from a pistol into an SBR. You sign it there as well.
Yeah, so signature of maker, I mean, yeah, you got to remember, you're actually the maker of this now when you're going through this process, because, and if you don't do that, that's going to be a reason they kick you back.
They will definitely kick
Who
you
knows
back.
if they'll let you in. So when you have 1 week, again, there's some nuance. Once we did it, it was pretty simple. But again, for me, having done the Form 4 hundreds of times, to now see it this way, it's like I was even making little errors. There were things that I was going to leave blank because I didn't assume I was the maker, but I am. So this is why it's so important to pay attention. And again, I got my fingerprint cards in about 45 minutes. I was able to get the passport photos at CVS, but again, 3 per. It's a lot. So make sure you don't wait until the 31st. You have a week. It's plenty of time to get it done, but you got to do it. And there's a lot of sort of ministerial stuff. It'll take you a little bit.
I did actually call a friend at the NFA, and I was able to get a straight answer. I sent the question in. I said, does the packet have to be received by you by May 31st or postmarked by May 31st? And the reply I got was correct. So either is the way I'm interpreting that judgment. Either postmarked or received by May 31st. I think you're going to be okay. They're going to be receiving so many of these, they're not going to know the difference. Get it done. If you're going to do it, I would get it done in the next few days. Another cool thing about this being on a podcast, we're going to cover this form. You don't have to worry about taking notes or memorizing this stuff. Go back, rewind, and rewatch the podcast. But there are some things on here that you're not going to know the answer to, and I'm going to save you guys hours of Google and putting in the wrong answers.
Yeah. Let's go through it. Just
let's go through from
one
the
by
very
one.
beginning. The very first thing at the top, it says, gives you an address, P.O. Box 5015, Portland, Oregon. That's where you're going to mail your packet to the ATF. That's
and how do you want to mail it? You said send it priority so that you have something, but don't send it with a signature because
required.
they won't sign it and it'll get kicked back to you.
They won't.
So priority or
tracking, as long as you put tracking on it, you're good to go. To be honest with you, when I send mine in, I put 6 stamps on an envelope and I send it in. My proof is when they cash the check. In this case, you're not going to send a check, so you won't have that proof that they received it.
Correct.
So if you send it with tracking, no signature required because they will kick it back. Send it with tracking. You can prove they received it. You're in the clear. You have your copy that you fill it out. You're good when they come and knock it.
Yeah, and that's you don't want to. You're not paying the $200.
No,
so
and that's another thing here I want to go over. So starting on the form, and I don't know if you're going to even see that, but if you guys pull them up on the site, it's going to ask you, question number 2, it's going to ask you what type of entity is actually asking for permission to do this. And you're going to check, unless you have a corporation or a trust, you're going to check individual because you are an individual. And you're going to go through literally to the next question, trade name, you're not going to have that as an individual. You're going to go through a county, that's the county you live. Put in your telephone number because if they have a simple question, they will call you. An email address. I've never been emailed because of one of these, but I'd put it in anyway. This box here it's critical that you use your physical address. You don't want to use a P.O. box. They will not approve it. You actually want to put the address where the item is going to be.
Okay.
If this gun is going to be at this address here, that's the address you're going to use. You're going to use the address where it's going to be stored at. Now, this is where things change because when I send these in, and I mean, if I were a gun nut, I would probably have hundreds of tax stamps, and I would send in a $200 check with them.
Yep.
And you would check the tax paid portion and send the check.
Yep.
Now, when you do this on the e-file, they automatically divert until the 31st to the tax exempt option. So you will check the tax exempt option.
So that's box C.
That's box C, and you will not send in a check. Now, here's where it gets interesting. We've had some come back recently where normally when you pay the money and you get this back, they put a lick and stick tax stamp on here with the serial number on it. So you actually feel like you're getting something for your money. I'm getting represented by this tax stamp. We've had some come back where they didn't give us a stamp, but they approved them. And they said, well, you didn't pay the $200, but we approved them. So you got your approved form. Basically, what more do you need? And it's like, hey, if that's what I need to be compliant, listen, I got bigger fish to fry, right? So that's the box you check to be tax exempt.
So for the guys going through this process, if it's, yes, in by the 31st.
Absolutely.
Turning, a pistol brace firearm into an SBR, you can do that. You can do it tax-free till then. Otherwise, you could still go the SBR route in the states that, like, I live in Florida, I can do this.
Anytime
I
you
can
want.
have an SBR and do it. I can pay my $200 and do that. But there's places that you wouldn't be able to do that
100%,
because
absolutely.
they've already banned them,
Absolutely.
regardless of what the federal law is, the state law.
I'm going to say it again just for redundancy here. You will not put a buttstock or vertical grip on this until you've received your approved form back.
Correct.
Because at that point you'd be in violation. So if we're going down the list here, name and address of original manufacturer. That's easy for us. It's going to be battle tested equipment, and so what you do here, you don't have to put the full address. You actually put BTE-USA Manufacturing, Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
That's what you put there. You're going to put type of firearm being made. Don't abbreviate and put SBR. They might slip it through. I've had them kick back. Put short-barreled rifle.
Okay.
Remember that, short-barreled rifle. And the next question, caliber, easy, 9mm. Now, here's the deal. If your receiver says multi and you put multi there, they're going to reject your form.
So whatever it's set up in currently, set that caliber. You can change it. There's nothing preventing you from changing it in time,
Once you're
but
approved.
you gotta actually put a caliber.
Yes,
in.
so
Okay.
essentially, if you SBR this gun, do it for 9mm, and if you ever put a different caliber or barrel length on it, just retain the ability to put it back to the register configuration. Over here is where it gets tricky. It's going to ask you the model. This one's going to be the sub 9 because it takes the Glock magazines. Barrel length, we showed you how to measure that, and you're going to be very accurate with that because you're going to go to Walmart or Hobby Bench or wherever and buy your wooden dowels, and you're going to be spot on. Your overall length, we showed you how to measure that on both a folder and non-folder model. Now this also works on like an AK-47 with a pistol brace. It's going to be, if it's a folder, it's in the folded configuration.
Yeah,
So-
my buddy Jason Vincent's actually going to talk about some of that because the irony of some of this is there are configurations of just full rifles that actually end up still being shorter than some of these. The folders, you know, some of the bullpup stuff. So I'll talk about that, guys, in a little bit so you can see the nuance and the differences.
Then, of course, you jump right to serial number. That's easy. Just write out the full serial number as it appears on the gun. When you go to this next box, this is one that was really never messed with before, and they're starting to crack down on it. You're going to go to, it says additional description. Now, what this box is for, and what you'll do is you'll actually take your name, they say name and address. So you'll take your name and the city, state, and zip that you live, and you'll write that in there. And what that means is
now you're the manufacturer.
That's what you're going to laser engrave on your firearm to be compliant. If you fail to put that in here, 50% of the time they'll kick it back. The other half of the time they'll kick it back with a stamp that'll say you must engrave your information on it. So just circumvent that. Name your full name as it appears up here, and your address. I mean, city, state, and zip right there, and then get your gun engraved with that information on the gun, and you're in full compliance.
But so when it comes to the engraving, I know theoretically it's there, but you don't know anyone that's ever done this, and
it's one of those.
No one's ever checked or.
I would hate to be the guy when they kicked in the door if that's what they're taking you to prison for. That one silly little thing. You know what I'm saying?
So fill it out right, but
use your judgment.
You can probably get away on that one.
We have to play by a different set of rules than those, but use your judgment on that one. But I would definitely recommend it. Another question here: specify why you intend to make the firearm. Now, my response has always been, and it's collection / investment. I'm into this because it's a collection. When I kick the bucket, Gio's going to buy her Florida house and her yacht and all that stuff with the proceeds of the gun.
I've seen your full auto collection. I know what they go for. So yes, she's going to have one hell of a house in exchange for all the MP5s and M16s and M60s.
Whatever's not willed to you and Eric, she'll be able to sell the rest, right? So I've seen some silly things there. I've seen I'm not even going to go into those. So collection or investment is why you can put all lawful purposes, whatever you choose. Yep. Don't be a smartass on that one. That's not the one you want to be a smartass on. This next box here, Jay, a lot of people miss this because it says type of destructive device. We're not dealing with a destructive device. That is irrelevant to what we're talking about, so you will literally skip over question J.
Yeah, because it's neither a firearm, because a destructive device, I guess in that case, would be a short barrel shotgun.
It would be, or a grenade launcher.
So, which you have, and we've played with.
We may or may not have done chest shots
may or may not have done that,
yeah.
So J, you can just ignore for the purposes of this.
Now K, this is going to ask you, is this firearm being reactivated? Now we're going to check no on that because what that means is a gun that was once full auto or registered and we're re-registering it, reactivating it. You will never run into that unless you're a manufacturer.
So J and K you can skip.
Well, you actually have to check no.
Okay, check no on K. I got you.
You're going to skip all the information asking you for your federal firearms license. None of that will be pertinent here.
Unless you have one, but
You wouldn't put it in there even if you did, because this is going in your personal. If you put it in your business, then you would do that, but at that point, why would you do it? Because you have a business. We're putting it in your SOT. Yep. So you're going to jump to signature of applicant. You're going to print your name here on 8. You're going to sign here. You're going to put today's date.
And in the PDF, by the way, when you pull it up, it actually has it crossed out, so you can't do it. So you got to just select it and undo it in the PDF form. But they make it pretty easy. Again, it's on the BTE-USA. Go to their Instagram, check it out. You can literally pull up the form, you'll see it. But you can see why so much of this is repetitive, basically, other than make, manufacturer, serial number, barrel length, and overall length. The rest of it's basically the same for you. So if you're doing a dozen of these, like someone I may know
Allegedly.
allegedly or more.
Yes.
You know, it's actually, you're literally changing this area here. The
Plug and
rest
play.
stays the same, which is so, you know, save the original form on your desktop, use that, and print your copies from there.
So you'll skip once you sign and date the front page. You're done. This is actually for the ATF.
Yep.
You'll flip it over to the next page. Now this is where it gets kind of tricky. So you're actually going to have to look up. It's this question 10 is your acknowledgement that you're going to notify your CLEO, your local sheriff, your chief law enforcement officer of your county. So you will look up your chief.
Yeah, look up literally your local sheriff.
Google it.
Google it for your zip code and area.
That's it. Put
and you're
their
going to
name.
send him the third copy. So each one
Yep.
of these, you're printing basically 4 front and back.
Yep.
Okay, print
Two-sided.
4 front
Yep,
and back
absolutely.
times 4.
Yep.
2 with 2 pictures. Is going to the ATF. If you put them all in one package together, it's just the 2 sets of fingerprint cards. If you're doing individual packets, then you're going to have to get a lot more fingerprint cards. So just do
Absolutely.
it all at once.
Yeah, do it all at once.
And
Just
then
get
you're
a ton of
sending
photos.
one copy of this to your local sheriff's department just
Absolutely.
with the photo. That's why you need 3 photos, and the 4th copy is literally for your own records. That's
Absolutely.
your receipt.
So you'll put the agency or name. So in your case, it'll be let's just say you lived in Palm Beach County. Let's just
Yeah.
say PBSO, Palm Beach PBCO, Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, and then the actual name of your sheriff, and then their address. That's all you do there. And then you're going to jump it. This is going to simulate a 4473 like you're buying
Yep.
a gun. It's going to ask you questions like, are you a felon? Are you
Yeah.
illegal
Have
in
you
this
renounced
country?
your citizenship?
Do
Have
you
you-
kick
yeah.
your dog?
Yeah.
All these things. This is stuff you want to read and answer honestly. You're going to go through this little box here is where you actually attach your photo. Now, what you
Yeah.
do with the photo, you write your full name and the last 4 of your social security number on it, and then you stick it with a piece
Literally,
of tape.
just put a little tape, overloop it, you know what I mean?
Stick it
And
to the
then
back.
stick it there.
Yep.
Again, times 2 to the ATF,
Yep.
times 1 to your sheriff's department. That's why you need 3 pictures. You probably don't need to put the picture on for your receipt, but you need 3 passport photos for each weapon that you're doing.
Absolutely. For guys as handsome as us, it's nice to have that extra
Yes.
copy with the picture on it, but that's fine. Not everybody has to follow those.
Put it this way, the guy at CVS, when I was like, I need 60 passport photos, he's like,
Yeah.
oh, really? Like,
Yeah.
he had not seen anything quite like that. That was interesting.
You'll go through it, and it's going to ask you. It gets kind of the only really tricky question here. If you're a U.S. citizen, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be not applicable to you. You'll just check NA. If it asks you, have you been issued, like this one asks you if you've been issued a UPIN. Obviously, if you don't know what that is, you're going to check no because you haven't been issued that. Ethnicity, you have to. This is split into 2 questions. They want to know if you're Hispanic or not, and then they want to know your race. So basically, are you Hispanic or not? And then pick a color is what they want you to do. They literally break it down like that. Below that, your country of citizenship. If you are a citizen of another country, you still can register. Some countries allow it, some don't. They may delay it. You may get a phone call. You may have to come in and talk to some people. But just go through here, state of birth, country of birth, and then at the end, you will sign it as maker, and then you'll date it. And that's what
Now,
you'll do.
this is the only part. The signature, even the date, you can do, again, on the PDF. But the signature on both front and back,
Has
because
to
again,
be
you got to
original.
sign as maker and you got to sign as applicant on the front. You have to sign, right? So print them out, and then that's on each one of them. You got to go through and sign
copy.
each one. 2 copies again to the ATF, 1 copy to your local sheriff's department, 1 for your files. I guess you don't need to save those, but it's probably nice to sign the
it's good
receipt.
to- it's good to
and
have,
probably do it
absolutely.
anyway. So you're going to do that times 4 just to be safe.
Now, if you do this after May 31st and you check the tax paid option,
Yeah.
okay, you're going to have to print the 3rd page, and you only need 2 copies of this. What you'll do is on this one, it asks you right down here. If you're doing a trust, which nobody does because it basically threw
Yeah,
away
they
the
made it
benefit.
sort of obsolete. That used to be a
Yeah,
thing, and now
so
it doesn't really
now
make
it
much
adds
sense.
a year to your processing time. It's just not worth doing it. This is what you'd use for a trust, but you actually check if you're going to pay the tax after May 31st. You would check how you're going to pay it. So mail in a check, which I always recommend because that's your receipt. They get it, they cash it. You can do credit card, fill it out, but this would actually go in with it. But if you do it before May 31st, you don't use this page because you're not paying the tax. You literally do the 2 copies, the 2 fingerprint cards. You do the
Attach
passport
the
photos
photos.
on the back.
Yep.
You mail it, put your return address on it, send it, and like I said, just send it first class mail, put some tracking on it, and then
Page 1's the only one that actually anything changes on. Again, so why it's so
absolutely.
important to do that PDF method, save it, and then you're literally just going back and changing and reprinting, change and reprint, because again, make, model, serial number, overall length, and barrel length are the only things that's changing. So it's literally, if you're doing 10 of these, just this little column
section.
changes. Everything else, unless you've got stuff all over the place, is fixed. So it's actually pretty simple, but there's so many little things that you can do. The next thing, again, the 2 fingerprint cards going to the ATF at the address at the top of the form
PO box
there in Oregon. But again, make sure, if you put tracking on it, priority, but not signature required. Otherwise, they're going to kick that back to you.
Absolutely, they definitely will. So that's pretty much it for the Form 1. If you have any questions, like I said, you go back over the podcast. We pretty much covered everything on there. As far as if you're going to go the non-registration pistol route, one thing I want to touch base on. So let's take that guy there. So I'm sorry, I don't want to flag you.
Yep.
I'll set it over here, and I'm going to grab this guy here, which is what's called an angled foregrip. Because if you remain a pistol, the first thing you would do is obviously we're going to go through, show the world that we've cleared the weapon for the 150th time. We're going to pull the buttstock off, the arm brace off, and then what we have to do is we actually have to remove the buffer tube and replace it with a smooth tube. At that point, the only other device we can put on for a front grip is an angled foregrip, and it cannot protrude below the mag wells. So that's why you're limited to a hand stop or an angled foregrip. If you put this vertical grip on here, even in the pistol configuration, you're in an NFA violation, and it's 10 years and $10,000. So,
Minor details. Which I'm sure they won't exercise with discretion.
You can cook, hey, listen, if you can cook, you're popular in federal prison. Hey, listen, that's allegedly from friends. But if you can't cook, just play by the rules. Angle foregrip, smooth buffer tube if you want to remain a pistol, if you don't want to fill out the form.
All right. There you have it, guys. You have about a week. For any more information, again, you can go right to the Form 1. It'll take you there on George's Instagram. If you go to BTE-USA, check out his stuff. Make some awesome guns. Just a true patriot.
If you don't like the page on Instagram, it won't let you click the link to the ATF.
Okay, that's yes. Wow, look at that. Gratuitous plug. I like that.
See that?
I like that.
If you don't hit the like, it won't. So
no, but in all seriousness, George has been great. He gives to a lot of law enforcement and veterans charities, as well as helping active duty guys. That's where Battle Tested actually came into effect. He always goes above and beyond with this stuff. And again, I don't know that neither of us are happy about what's going on with this, but we also understand he owns full auto machine guns. He's class 3. That if he breaks one little, it's over. It's his entire business. Me, similar. I'm on an SOT. I have suppressors. I have these kinds of things. I'm on any list in the world. I just know that people are waiting for me to make an error. And as much as that sucks, it's the reality of the situation. That's not meant to say we're soft on this issue. I promise you, no one on this podcast, no one watching or that could be watching in the future has more vested, more guns than certainly you or I combined. Than us. But we're just trying to make sure that people understand how to stay within the law, even if we're not happy with that law, even if we think it's overreach, even if we think it's bullshit, which it is. We also understand that we're the first people that are going to get a visit, and we're going to be made an example of.
There's nothing worth your freedom. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
You fight, your podcast, you fight the good fight every day, and I watch it. I'm a huge fan. I've told you that. I watch it every.
George actually chimes in a lot to the
every Monday and Thursday.
The Ask Me Anythings on locals that I do afterwards. For those of you with questions, your subscribers there, he's going to stick around anyway. So if we have other questions about the details, I hope the rest of it's self-explanatory. Showed you all the details how to do it, and we should be good to go. But make your own decisions. We're all big boys and girls. Absolutely. You can do that. We just wanted to make you to understand exactly what's out there. And again, vote. Elect people who will push back on this shit. Maybe in 2 years, in 4 years, in 8 years, whatever it may be, maybe we get win a Supreme Court battle about this. But these are the things they're going after. They've made no bones about that. They're going to try to make you in violation of the law. You look at what they did, again, to the Good Samaritan, Daniel Perry.
Absolutely.
Choking out a lunatic, on a subway, trying to protect people. Everyone says he's a hero that was actually there, but he's going to be charged with murder.
Craziness.
That's why he's, they're trying to put us in a situation where people don't want to be good Samaritans, where they don't want to defend themselves. But guys, one day one of your loved ones, is going to be in a situation, and you're going to hope that someone has the balls to actually step up and be that good Samaritan. These leftist DAs, the Soros-funded, the Democrat just policy in general, they want to eliminate that person. They want people just weak like sheep And again, while we're talking about how to go about giving them this information, they probably have it already. And like I said, I'm on every list, which is why people have to make their own decisions with that. So
one of the things we have to keep in mind too, this affects 5 to 7 million Americans.
Yeah.
That's 5 to 7 million people we need to keep out of jail so they can vote for Donald Trump in 2024. That's the way I look at it. That's the way it has to go. So
thank you very much,
my
George.
pleasure,
I appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you.
So guys, now what we're going to do, we're going to bring in my buddy Jason Vincent. He's my partner in Field Ethos. Jason's former multiple agency law enforcement. He's a funny and witty guy who can discuss the amount of hate that I will get for even suggesting or talking about how to possibly stay within the laws. I can assure you Jason's seen at least a third of my gun collection and understands that I'm not a slouch on the Second Amendment. But Jason, welcome aboard, buddy.
Hey, Don. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I just started actually using Twitter for the first time in the last week. I had no idea how much bullshit you put up with every day on Twitter. But yeah, I've seen a lot of your gun collection.
If you think Twitter's bad, imagine what the ATF would do to me if I was in violation of some of these things. Again, I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I just want to make sure people have their options.
Man, you're such a fun target for the ATF. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing, what it's about is turning guys like you and I into criminals. And it's absolutely bullshit. So I was talking to Charlie Benton, who works with me at Field Ethos, and Charlie's a former law enforcement officer. He spent 12 years in. I spent almost a decade. And the guys at the ATF, bottom line, the field agents are not happy about this. The brass is making changes that are unconstitutional, and it's going to affect the guys on the ground that are doing the job. They're unhappy about it. Really, the way that things are supposed to work and the way that things worked for Charlie and I, if there was a change that was going to come into play in how we did our job and how we enforced the law, it came through a legal update. Now, we got several legal updates a year, but legal updates were based off of court decisions that we then had to change how we operated. It was never an agency going, you know what, guys, we're just going to change how we do this just for the hell of it. We're going to decide that we want to put these people in jail for no fucking reason. And so it has changed a lot for the guys that are working for the ATF.
Yeah, well, listen, you've heard me make that distinction. I mean, the distinction between sort of the bureaucrats at the top and the door kickers. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of FBI agents in the last few years that have come up to me. It's a disgrace what's going on, but they also, they can't lose their job, their pension, their livelihood, their families, because they understand if they say something, they're gone. You saw the testimony last week. I mean, I said something and I was immediately blackballed and I was locked out of my files and sent to Guam to do it. I mean, they are going after the whistleblower. So, we understand. We're not blaming all of law enforcement. I do know from conversations with George in the past, I mean, connections that we've had, he has at ATF, literally people were using me as the example because months ago I was out shooting with Spencer, with George, and we were shooting full autos in the desert, totally legal. He's got all the stuff and the boss literally said, like, Donald Trump Jr. is the real threat. It's like, really, I'm the threat? Not like the people murdering people with illegal 400-year-old handguns in the streets of Chicago? No, I don't think I'm the actual threat. I don't know that any of my guns has ever just magically got up and shot someone. It just doesn't happen that way, but that doesn't matter because it's not about law. It's not about actually stopping the crime. It's about stopping people who have the ability to defend themselves from being able to do so.
And that's what it's really about. I mean, it's about, it has nothing to do with making United States a safer place. Changing the restrictions on a pistol-braced firearm or an SBR, that does not make anything safer. As a matter of fact, I've got several examples of things that are legal and things that are going to be illegal if you don't update them by the end of the month. And if you're cool with it, I'll go ahead and pull those things up and kind of show them off and explain the differences.
That's it.
So this is a legal firearm. Okay, this is a Galil 308. It's been safety checked. I heard you guys go through some of that. It's
because based on what you've seen on social, Jason, that if there's something that's not that, oh my God, the outrage police. Not to say that we shouldn't be safe, but the outrage police, they'll find something that they can bitch about.
100%. But this gun has a side folding stock. You can see it right there.
Yep.
So basically the stock folds up on the side of the gun. You can actually still fire this gun while the stock is folded. All right. This is going to be illegal next week. So you can see this gun here is actually longer than the legal gun, right?
Yep.
So we're talking about short barreled rifles, making this a short barreled rifle. This is a full length barreled rifle with a folding stock. But if you really were trying to conceal it, the one with the folding stock actually folds up and is smaller. There are a ton of examples out there like that the ATF is picking and choosing what they are going to make illegal. The reality of it is this is a perfect vehicle for them, arbitrarily changing how they're going to enforce SBR regulations is a perfect way to attack a ton of legal gun owners at one time. There are 5 to 10 million braces out there. Does that mean there are 5 to 10 million consumers that actually own them? Probably not. People like me own multiple. People like you own multiple. But the reality of it is this is an arbitrary law change, or not even a law change, arbitrary rule interpretation that they're going to enforce and make us criminals.
So what is the solution? I know you did a thing on Field Ethos. For those of you who are following me, or primarily on Instagram, I guess, because on Twitter it's not even worth it. Sort of unapologetic men's adventure lifestyle brand publication. A lot of focus on Second Amendment, focus on hunting, fishing, the outdoors, that adventure lifestyle, and again, unapologetic, because even those things have gone woke. But you did a post last week talking about some of the intricacies that we talked about tonight. And again, there's some of those like, oh my God, I can't believe you said X, Y, Z. Talk about the details of that. Because again, I just want people to, this is not advocating either way, but I think we have to understand, based on what we've seen, the lengths that people will go to hurt people that believe most of what the people that are watching a podcast like this will do. You can see that, right? The BLM rioters, nothing happens. But if you were anywhere within 1,000 miles of D.C. on January 6th, you were looked at, or you may still be in jail. So we just want people to be clear in that but the haters will say it's a total infringement, it's a disaster, which I agree with. But it's just part of that's the reality of what we have to deal with. And I want to make sure people understand that and can make informed decisions themselves.
Sure. So what I did last week was I showed a video of me actually registering one of these firearms that's going to be affected as a short barreled rifle on the Form 1 that you guys talked about. And I'm not going to go into detail. But there are processes online that make this thing really quick. You can e-file with the ATF. So I filmed a video showing, okay, I'm going to turn this pistol brace firearm into a legal SBR. Am I doing that with all of them? Absolutely not. Andrew Clyde, who was on earlier, Congressman Clyde, he explained that there is going to be a gap in when they start enforcing this illegal regulation, and when he feels like his supporters in Congress will be able to shut this down. So basically what I was saying was either take the pistol brace off of the firearm, or you can do what I'm doing with several of these that I wanted to SBR anyways. And here's the process on how to do that. And people just went nuts. No, leave the pistol braces on. Don't register anything with the ATF. And look, I'm not disagreeing with them at all. I think you should exercise whatever option you feel comfortable exercising. If you want to be a felon for a couple of weeks, look, I've got no problem with that. But what we were saying is, if you don't want to be a felon during this gap, or however long it takes to correct this issue, take the pistol brace off, leave it away from the gun. I think some people have said even destroy the pistol brace, or you can go through a Form 1. The tax stamp $200 fee is waived right now, and you can turn it into a legal SBR. Now, here's the problem with having a legal SBR, and most people don't know this. If you actually do convert that gun, your pistol brace firearm, into a legal SBR, you can no longer travel outside of state lines with that firearm and go hunt with it, go to a shooting event with it, go to the range with your family in another state when you go visit them for the holidays. You cannot take that gun out of state without providing written notice to the ATF. Now, I have asked an ATF agent.
Is it ATF or local law enforcement?
I believe it's ATF. And I asked an ATF agent about that, and he said, yes, this is ATF. You have to notify, but I don't know who you're supposed to notify. So he
actually,
didn't know.
George is sitting right here. Do you know this one? Because once it's registered and it's the SPR, to travel out of state with that gun, you have to notify. So what are the rules on that? Because again, we just want to make sure everyone knows everything.
So what you're going to do is you're actually going to want to notify the CLEO of the area you're traveling to.
Okay, so you're notifying the local law enforcement that you're doing. Again, you're
Okay,
not
so the
asking for permission.
sheriff or chief of police. So the sheriff or chief of police in that jurisdiction.
Sheriff or chief of police?
Yeah, basically
the same people you're mailing the second copy of the form.
If I'm coming to Palm Beach County, I'm gonna let him know that I'm traveling to his county to hunt with a suppressor or a short barrel rifle, whatever it is. Let them know ahead of time before you travel.
But you're not asking for permission, you're just stating it.
You're notifying them, yeah.
Okay.
And some counties have different terms. You have to notify it X amount of days before. There may be some, I'm sure probably in some of the more liberal areas where you actually have to get a response from them, get permission from them, but I've yet to run across that.
Okay. So listen, yeah. Again, more nuance that we'll figure out, but it's an important thing, and I mean, I imagine that's something that we want to think of. I've been to plenty of things. I've traveled with stuff like this all over the place. Never been bothered, never been checked, never been, But again, that doesn't mean they won't start enforcement immediately, and I imagine they'll, prosecute those very, very selectively. Me being, target number one.
There's so many just different things that you have to pay attention to regarding firearms laws from state to state. Hypothetically, I might have come to visit you in a state one time and accidentally had something in my truck, hypothetically, that I wasn't supposed to have, but it was completely okay here. And it wouldn't have been okay there. But, regardless, the smart thing to do is to obviously secure your firearms, make them compliant during this window. If you don't want to do that, we 100% support that too.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to be, if you don't want to open yourself up to, legal charges, that's the only thing you can do right now.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm seeing a couple, one question was, do you have to notify every county that you pass through? And the usual answer to that is no, meaning if you're in transit, just like if I'm taking a gun on a plane, when I'm going hunting somewhere, you can go in transit through without it. So it's really the destination. But I'm also seeing people do the, register your gun so they can find you. It's like, again, for me, folks, I'm on a list. Okay. If you haven't been watching for the last 6 years, if you've commented on my podcast or anyone else's, you're probably on a list too. If you think that they're not already spying on you, you haven't been watching. You haven't seen the stuff that they've, put out as it relates to the Patriot Act. You haven't seen the tens of thousands of people that they violated just this week, where they were doing illegal sort of searches and whatever it may be on these things. I don't think in this world of technology, unless you're literally totally off the grid, don't have a credit card, because I know the banks told, the FBI, who charged anything. They offered it up without, Bank of America certainly did it. They offered it up to the FBI that, these people were around D.C. that day. There's a charge on their credit card. Why don't you go ask them a question? Like, I don't know that there's a level of off the grid that we can reasonably expect to say that we're not on a list at this point. So we have to understand that. So again, this is not advocating
you and I are definitely list buddies. We're on the same list.
I'm on more lists than you. I have to say this. You know what I mean? As
you 100%. 100%. But yes. The reality is like what's really unfortunate right now is that you have a executive branch that is picking and choosing how they want law enforcement to do their jobs, right? So you have them basically telling Border Patrol to ignore the laws, and then you have them telling ATF to aggressively enforce laws or aggressively enforce rules that are not laws, right? So they are picking and choosing how they administer the law in this country from the executive branch. They are pressuring these agencies, they're pressuring the brass to carry out their bidding, and it affects American people like me and you and my neighbors and Charlie here that works for me. I mean, it's crazy to think that if one of my friends from church decides not to take a brace off of his gun next week, that he's a felon, responsible
again,
people. So
I imagine that those will actually be enforced, unlike the laws against arson and looting and rioting and even insurrection. Like when government buildings were taken over in Portland and Seattle during the Summer of Love. It's just different, and those are the realities of the world. We don't have to be happy about it. It's why we actually have to be involved. It's why we have to be vocal. It's why we can't be passive about it. People, oh well, we'll let Trump go take the hits. No, guys. Like if one guy going out there by himself, they can cancel all of us. But 175 million Americans start saying this is bullshit and calling it out. It's different. I mean, we saw that space. I mean, that's how we sort of got together and created Field Ethos. I mean, even literally the hunting and outdoor space, which is where sort of the magazine started and then sort of spun off into just a general adventure lifestyle, even that sort of got taken over by the woke folks. And, we can't talk about, the killing an animal, even, like you're selling hunting guns. Like, what are you talking about? I mean, talk a little bit about Field Ethos so those of you who haven't seen it, who are just watching this and don't necessarily follow my Instagram, can learn a little bit more about that and what started it.
Yeah, it really started when you and I were hunting in Utah several years ago, and we were talking about how there wasn't really an outlet out there that didn't have some element of woke ideology bleeding into the pages of the magazine. And we're talking hunting magazines. And there are some great gun publications out there. There's some great hunting magazines out there, but you and I felt like nothing really represented who we are. Everybody's kind of given up ground on some certain things that you and I refuse to give up ground on. So we decided to start our own brand. And so we started Field Ethos to tell the unapologetic truth about who we are as sportsmen and adventurers and hunters and anglers and just men. So it's a men's lifestyle brand with a heavy-handed, DNA of hunting and fishing, but really it's the global hunt for adventure, whether that's us riding motorcycles through Africa or hunting in Mongolia or spearfishing in Turkey, whatever that is, we tell it from our perspective, not that apologetic, washed down version of what society tells men they ought to be now. So I would describe it, at least in the print journal form, and I've got the most recent issue right here. It's kind of like National Geographic if all the editors killed things and owned assault rifles. Yeah. And it is just it's a lot of fun, to be honest with you. It's a passion project for me and you. We both love the outdoors. We both love taking adventures and traveling the world and experiencing new cultures, and meeting new people really is probably our favorite part, I would say. And you and I have traveled quite a bit together, and we make friends everywhere we go. And it's just something that we're passionate about. And we wanted to do this our way. And people have responded really well to it. There are a lot of men out there that feel like their lifestyle is being ripped away from them.
You know why that is?
Everywhere they live.
Because it is
being ripped away from them. Yeah. I mean, the things that we're seeing corporations do right now. If you would have suggested some of these things when you and I were 10, 11 years old, you'd have been laughed out of the room. Right.
Yeah. The only masculinity and testosterone that's permitted right now is in a woman injecting it into herself. Yeah. That's fine and that's wonderful. But actual masculinity, traditional, red-blooded American men, that's a big faux pas. We can't do any of that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I laugh about a lot of it until I think about the fact that, okay, my kids are going to inherit this, and that's not funny. Yeah. It's asinine, the direction our country is headed in. And really Field Ethos is in response to that. We wanted to create something that you and I would be proud of. And we have some amazing people involved in the project now: Dave Etter, Colin Jones, Mike Scobie, Shane Meisel, Charlie Benton, Alex Brigham. I mean, we've got a really cool crew of people that share this lifestyle with us and make Field Ethos what it is. But it's unbelievable that really there aren't more products like ours out there. But I don't know. Maybe
they always say build your own, and so we did.
Yeah, maybe transgenders just buy a ton of magazines. I don't know. But
apparently they buy a ton of Ford pickup trucks. So even the Raptor's gone gay. It's amazing.
I will say the Raptor's always been kind of gay. But
Not that there's
the
anything
reality
wrong
of it
with
is,
that.
is
Yeah,
like-
before we get canceled. But yeah, no.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but look, you did. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's some really funny stuff going on out there right now that I just can't believe. The Bud Light thing, we don't need to talk more about that. I mean, to be honest with you, I was telling somebody the other day that I'm pretty sure the top brass at Bud Light did not know that was going to happen.
Well, yeah, and
but what we
I was
can't-
sort of surprised that a band that traditionally wasn't. I think I got crapped all over on that one, but like I'm not shedding any tears for anyone that gets this sort of treatment for being
No,
insane.
here's
And
the
in fact,
deal.
like I'm an investor in companies taking on that. Like I put actual money behind things like. Whether it's Patriot Mobile, Public Square. I mean, that's a big one that I'm an investor in it. Doing it. What it was sort of amazing to me is like, why has no one done this to Nike? Why has no one done this to Hollywood? Why has no one done this to all the guys jamming this shit down our throats from moment number one? Like I was like, well, this one, like, yeah, I'm not shedding any tears, but I'm sort of amazed it took that long for it to happen to anyone corporately. And
I think
I'm
the way
glad
I
it's
felt about
happening.
it was that the way that I felt about that one was like, okay, I'm pretty sure the top brass wouldn't have allowed this. Okay, they probably didn't know. Now's their time to respond to it, and they did not respond to it in a way that a lot of us felt comfortable with. So we said goodbye to the brand forever. And it was they didn't triage that situation very well. But
what's
we're
even
gonna see
scarier,
more-
like I said, is now the doubling down from all these other companies that are, just like that was great. What's the worst? I'm like, wait a minute, did you see? Like, and even with that in hindsight, they don't care enough, which to me is what's really scary, right? That you can see that kind of reaction and then be like, I want some of that too, because I'm like, I don't know that anyone should want some of that at this point.
Yeah, I mean, lose $5 billion this quarter. That didn't scare these people off from doing it with their brands. Bud Light has lost a ton of money this quarter. And the fact that people have kind of doubled down and continued along their path is I don't know. I really can't even wrap my head around it. But I do know this. We have to, as conservatives, as Americans, we have to find brands that we believe in that don't engage in that, and we have to support them. That is the only way to combat this. You've got Yingling. If you wanted to support a different beer brand, Yingling is very very right down the middle on the conservative side. They're not, they are true American patriot brand, very old beer brand, but there are all kinds of brands out there that people, if they just look, they can support brands.
Yeah, guys,
do
get on
support-
Public Square, like just publicsq.com. You can find like literally a directory of people that sign up, small businesses that sign up to say these are our values, these are what we believe in. And when you look at sort of, again, the economic storm that's coming, the decisions that are being made, like you can choose to put like their kids through like hockey practice or whatever, or you can keep supporting like, woke corporate America who doesn't give a shit about you. So go check those guys out. Check out Field Ethos, guys. Check out Battle Tested Equipment. Jason, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I also want to thank our sponsors, the guys that support programming like this and shows like this. I mean, that takes some balls in and of itself. So check out the folks at Goldco by going to donjuniorgold.com. That's DONJR gold.com. You can own tangible, physical, inflation hedging gold. Protect yourself from the insanity. Protect yourself from inflation, from the stock market, from what's going on in there or what's about to go on in there, the rise in interest rates. Just again, the stupid people making decisions because they put them in charge of trillions of dollars and your retirement because they check a couple of woke bullshit boxes rather than being competent. You saw what happened in the bank collapses. Silicon Valley Bank, I mean, they had a banking board of 12 people. I believe one of them had any banking experience. That's wonderful, folks. It's wonderful. I know they had some improv actors. That's great. Not sure I want them looking after my retirement savings, and there's a reason they collapsed. So check out donjuniorgold.com. Learn how to protect yourself from that. Again, speaking of being prepared for that onslaught, check out My Patriot Supply, where you can stock up on everything you need for an emergency. My Patriot Supply, they're making that special offer I talked about earlier to be prepared for what's coming. A free water filtration system with that. You get a 3-month food kit for a wide variety of delicious meals to take care of you when you actually need it. And again, I think we've been watching. It makes sense to be prepared. So to check that out, preparewithdonjr.com. That's Prepare with Don, JUNIOR.com. You got to spell out the junior in this one. I got to fix that because all the others are DONJR. But spell it out. Prepare with Don Jr. JUNIOR.com. Check it out. Learn how to take care of yourselves and family just in case it goes wrong, which, based on the idiots that they have in charge right now, are doing that. Guys, also make sure to hit the like button on this one. This is one of those, this is not an evergreen podcast, right? This one is one that basically come May 31st, you can't do anything about it. So share it with your friends, hit the like button, pass it on to your friends who are gun owners so they can learn what to do. They can learn how to go through the process on the Form 1 if they choose to do that. They can learn every variable to not make a mistake if that's the route they want to go. And I think if it's not, I think we've given you plenty of reasons to do the other one, but this isn't one that you're going to look at in a month. This one's got a 1-week cycle, and given, some of the time, you could probably do it in a good solid half a day and actually get through everything, even if you have a bunch of them, because the fingerprint cards, the 2-pack of that you need for ATF, the quick run to CVS for your passport photos. It can be done pretty quickly, but don't wait until the last day. Get it in the mail if you can, a little bit earlier, the better. Get it in the mail if you're choosing to do that one. Priority, so you have tracking, but no signature. Remember that one. It'll get kicked back, and you're up Schitt's Creek. So thank you so much, guys. Again, like and share to those of you who have Second Amendment friends, so they know what to do. We appreciate one. Hopefully this was educational. Maybe, give me some comments on that if you like the idea of this, because this was a very different sort of route. I've not done sort of the tutorial before, but I'll be curious. And for those of you who may have more questions, if you're following me over on Locals, I'm going to kick over to that right now. Do the Ask Me Anything, and if there's anything else that needs to be banged out in there, we can maybe cover it. So thank you very much, guys. I appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.